We'll call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board for Thursday, August 17th, 2023. Present at the front table to my far left, Jessica Vitale, a voting member.
Evening.
Next to Jessica is Ed McGargy, a voting member. Hello. My immediate left, Ernie Angelos, our esteemed solicitor.
Good evening.
To my right, Jesse Poynton, a voting member. Far right, Kelly Kirk, the Director of Code Enforcement for Haverford Township. And yeah, I gave you a promotion, Kel. You deserve it. We have one continued and three new cases on the agenda tonight. The first, before we begin calling cases, I want to announce that on July 31st, 2023, and as well as this evening, we had an executive session with special counsel for the township regarding a confidential legal matter. Do I need to say anything more than that?
It's just currently, it's a case pending before the Court of Comment, please.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to the first case, which is a continued case. Oh, yeah. Jess, you want to do the pledge? Lead us?
United States of America, to the republic, stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I need to announce the time that our executive session began and ended. Okay. Our first case tonight is Z23-05, God bless you. DMG Elite Properties LLC, owners of 8 Campbell Avenue. I won't, since this is a continued case, third or fourth hearing on this matter, I won't read the rest of the description into the record unless someone specifically requests that I do so. George.
Good evening. Thank you. And thank you for having us back. We have two presents for you. We have a new set of exhibits for some revised drawings where we actually went in and shifted the second and third floors forward about 6 feet to solve some of the setback problems and some of the problems with the neighbor on the driveway side. So I have a set of, I should have 7 sets of drawings of the new revised ones that I can bring out if you mark.
He got it.
Let's call them.
16. George, where do you? So, I was not present
Sure.
last month. I don't know if you moved or marked exhibit.
We
The
did.
last one I had when I was here was 16. So,
I will have to flip
Would you,
through my file, which I left half of it back to work. Should we start at 20?
do you think
Skip.
5? Leaving a 5?
I think so. And
So you didn't submit more than 5 at the last hearing?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we'll start with 20.
We'll be safe.
I don't know. You weren't here? If I wasn't here? I don't think so.
But let me more. The last meeting.
Oh, they weren't here at the meeting. Oh, then 16 is the
16.
number that we should pick up with.
So it's 17.
Okay, but you just had it marked 20, so we'll leave a gap. Just make a note that A16 to A19 intentionally left blank. Jesse's my plans, man. Hard enough time keeping track of all the exhibits.
Thank you.
And then while we're marking exhibits, let me just mark this one, 21, which is
I'm sorry, George, before we go any further, I'm looking at the transcripts from the July 20th hearing, which is, I think, the last one. Or, I'm sorry, that was where the case was continued to August 17th. The one prior to that was June 15th, and the last exhibit in the transcripts is 8/15.
Yeah,
we already had it marked 820, so we're gonna keep a gap that way, but you're right, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
But Kel, let's make a note that 16 and 19 don't exist.
Listed the code. Summary of where the property stands and whether it's a current issue with the property.
I'm sorry, Mr. Levin, you need to either speak louder or into the
I'm
microphone.
sorry, I'll talk into the microphone. I was walking and talking at the same time. I should know better than to do both. The second exhibit, A22 or A21, will be a list of the specific zoning codes. We assessed it as a single-family R6 zoning type requirement, and we looked at all the requirements for that, and we list what the building currently complies with, what we're asking for as far as relief, and then we'll formalize the variance request. So the first thing I'd like to do is ask Dan to come up here and ask him to talk a little bit about the changes that they've made to the design of the building and the setback changes that they've made to the second and third floors.
Okay?
Thank you.
And Dan, you were sworn at a prior hearing, so you're still under, but please just state your full name for the record.
Yep, Daniel Greenspun, 24 East Eagle. Okay, so we decided to take the back half of the back of the building, sorry, I guess it would be the side that backs up to the neighbor. We're gonna take the second and third floors, move them 5 feet away from the neighbor to create more space, more light. On the front side of the building, sort of in the center there, in between the curve and that other outcut, we'll move that 6 feet forward to make up that difference, so we don't have an overhang over the bottom unit. That allows us to still keep the parking in the front. It allows more of everything for the neighbor, light, space. It also allows us to move all of the entrances, so the entrance to the first floor as well as entrance to all the apartments on the second and third floor, all to the Darby Road side, so that nobody will be accessing the building from Campbell Avenue at this point, under this drawing. It still allows for the 11 parking spots on the property, and the 3 that we have off the property. It does shrink the building a little bit from what we had previously proposed, and we'll make that work on our end. But we do believe that this is the best use for the township, getting rid of an old dilapidated building, bringing something new, clean and fresh, as well as higher end apartments that'll be around 1,000 square feet. Due to the changes we just talked about, they do drop, 2 of them at least drop below 1,000 square feet. But I still think that's better than, what's normal in Havertown at this point. And those are the reasons we made those changes. Anything else?
Jessica, questions?
When you were looking at resizing the building, did you give any consideration to pulling the building back from the rear yard setback at all?
The rear setback?
Correct.
We did. Making it any smaller than it currently is will, I think, puts us with the second floor and the apartment level, it puts us into a place where we're just providing the same apartments that are available in Haverford Township at this current point. And I think, as I've said in the last couple of meetings, our goal is to bring a product that doesn't exist in the township. And I think that was, when we brought Rose Kane to the hearing, I mean, she's one of the people that wants to live here, right? She wants to downsize from her big house in the center of Havertown. She wants to stay in Havertown. But moving to a 600 square foot apartment is not an option for somebody like that. And I've been approached by a lot of people that are interested in this type of product, and that's the reason for keeping it at that size.
I don't have any other questions.
Ed,
No question.
Jesse?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on I think the biggest hurdle I have too is the extrusion up of was a non-conforming, the one-story addition where you're building it up, and so this is talking about the rear setback. And so is the project you don't think the project is viable if you were to conform to the rear setback? You would not be able to, you just don't think would the project I know you mentioned that you want to provide these, to the market.
Financially, it doesn't, if you would eliminate an entire apartment at that point. And financially, it doesn't make sense. I mean, like I said in an earlier hearing, from an investment perspective, it doesn't really make complete sense as it is, but given my business is going to be operating there, it makes it more viable.
No other questions.
I don't have any questions. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Just to clarify the last question, we're considering the rear setback, the setback between the building and the cheese club. Is that the same?
Yes, the rear,
and
as
front of
labeled, the
building
rear
being- okay,
setback.
Thank you. I get confused every time. Let me see, there it was. Let me see, I'm just going to run through the PowerPoint here relatively quickly. I think we've marked that as 821. But, let me figure where the keys are. There we go. Let me just run, and I'm just trying to summarize, and the list of the actual variances are listed at the end. But as Dan said, we're trying to convert, the lamplighter to a modern mixed-use residential above retail structure. There are a lot of variants proposed, as we discussed with the board several times and with Kelly. We're doing our best to list everything that is not in compliance with the ordinance at this time, and some explanations as to how we got there. And we're kind of distinguishing the as-is property to the from our proposed changes, and we'll spell that out in the next couple of sheets. But we don't know, like for the rear setback between the lamplighter and the cheese club, that's existing 2 or 3 feet. The setback's 25 feet in the rear yard, and that's been there since probably the 20s. So what we've doing is we're proposing essentially a change in use from a restaurant bar to a residential and retail type structure. And right now we looked at and we analyzed the structure. It's zoned as R6, which is a single family detached dwelling, but it's been historically used commercially for 60 to 80 years. It's got a big history of numerous and often contentious zoning issues. And, again, restating the property, we're trying to just bring it up to a new, different use and make it something that we believe is useful in the township. I'm just going to walk through each specific requirement, and you'll see on the PowerPoint, the green is where we comply with the existing requirements. The blue is where there's an issue. We've got the right size lot, right size street frontage, right size minimum lot size at the middle. We do have building coverage. We're keeping essentially the same footprint, so the maximum required is 40% coverage of the buildings. We have 43.9, which is just slightly above the minimum for a single family, and it does meet the requirements of the multifamily properties under the R6 zoning code. The next requirements are for the front yard. The requirements are 20-foot minimum on the one side and 12-foot on the other. We meet both of them. The side yards, residential use, again, that's how we're analyzing it. 14-foot total, 7 on both sides. The side yard in this case, as you saw in the exhibit that was up there, is actually the side yard next to the neighbors. The other side yard faces Darby. We have the problem on the side facing the neighbor. It currently exists as 5.24 feet. The minimum is 7, so we're 2 feet shy there. It's been that way forever. The existing building's been that way. We have, as we said, shifted the upper floor, so now that the second and third stories are 10 feet away from the property line, and they meet the requirements. Shifting it forward 6 feet didn't really change the requirements in the front, because we're pretty far from that line anyway. The rear yard minimum, it's 25 feet, we're at 3.4 feet essentially. So we're short, and that, again, every picture we've ever seen in the initial application, we've got a picture of the lamplighter from a long time ago, and it's sitting there. So that, we're trying to clean up that variance. We believe that's been approved at some point in the past. And that, again, is the space between the side of the lamplighter and the cheese club. The height of the building, it's 3 stories. We've got it proposed for less than 35 feet, which meets the requirement, and we're going to put a 3-story flat roof with solar panels on it. Impervious surface, it being a parking lot in front of the lamplighter, we're way up towards the top. The maximum for that area for a residential property is 65%. We're at 84, so we're 20% above that. We're at about 85%. The bulk, the changes, as we said, we're essentially taking the existing footprint and taking it up to 3 stories. So, existing, there's the first floor square footage. On the left-hand column, that's what existing in the current structure. The big changes, of course, are to the second, third floors, and we're proposing to change them by, a significant amount. One thing to note on here is that the square footage you see there that does not include the decks that were added. So the decks, I didn't think it was fair to count them, but they're probably, 500 to 1,000 square feet from a footprint standpoint, so they're not enclosed, but, we showed it just the enclosed air-conditioned area on there. The last variance we would ask, so we're asking for the variances for the proposed changes for the bulk size of the building. And we're also asking for a variance to drop 4 of the required parking spots from the requirement. We're up to 18. We have 14 secured. I believe there's 11 on the lot and 3 with permits. After discussions with Kelly and the use of the business, we really believe that that's sufficient for the way the business is used. It's not a walk-in retail shopping business. It's a design and contractor business. If Dan had a customer walking in there every hour or two, and that volume of cars, he'd be down in Florida by now. So, he has 1 or 2 people come in a day. We don't think it's a place where the parking would be required. And if it becomes a problem, we'll go out and work to resolve it. Rent some more spots in the city lots and things like that. That's essentially the summary, and any questions you have, I'll try to answer.
Your case sheet is done.
Yes, correct.
What I'd like to do is leave the record open, only because the board that I'm trying to digest
Understood.
exhibits that you submitted. This has become very complex.
It has, and I know Mr. Angelos asked me to write up a legal description, but I wanted to present the facts and how they came about before I spent a lot of time doing that and running up the bill on my customer.
If you want to write
Yes.
up a legal description, see, and I can't speak for the other board members, it's hard to get your head around, as I sit here, exactly what the specific relief, so how do we write it, if we wanted
Well,
to vote to approve this?
Yes,
Because it must be very specific. Because if the property is sold, the next person comes in, and if it's vague, Who
Understood,
knows what could go in there, and we won't subject the residents to a situation like.
understood. And that's, we do want to clean all that up, and I understand that. And there were some things I learned between the last two meetings where I didn't feel comfortable writing up the specific variance language at this point. I wanted
I'm going
to
to leave
present the
the
facts.
record open because once the board members, including Bill,
Mm-hmm.
have a chance to digest these additional exhibits, if, there's an additional piece of information someone wants, I want you to
Sure.
have the opportunity to be able to submit it. If I close the record.
Understood, understood.
Okay. Any other questions before we continue this? I'm going to announce it as a continuance to get the
Sure.
record. Yeah.
I got one.
Go ahead, Jesse.
In the last few months, and there was some talk of, when the first case was presented, we talked about, we're maintaining the structure, we're building up. And then I think in a subsequent hearing, there was a little bit more discussion about how the foundation would have to be reinforced. Has there been any other further structural engineering analysis or, do you have any other, anything else to present on any other findings that you found in the interim time on how, anything else that might change the structure?
Besides being a lawyer, I've also got a mechanical engineering degree. But we have changed the structure. We're leaving the first floor structure the same. We were going to build on top of the first floor structure to do the second and third. But since we've shifted the way it is, we're not going to have to build on and use as a structural support the wall between the driveway and the lamplighter, the rear wall of the lamplighter next to the driveway. So we're going to we're going to redo the structural design to add supports where the exterior wall on the second and third floor goes up once we move it 6 foot in. So I think, I'm not directly answering your question, but am I hopefully helping you understand what we're doing? So, but we haven't done that. That will be part of the structural analysis, but we don't see a detailed structural analysis like we did before as being required because we moved the load-bearing structures from the existing foundation walls to essentially new points.
I guess my question, it goes towards the area and bulk, about, whether or not
Yes.
you're affecting more than 50% of the structure. And the one-story area that's in the rear setback currently.
Yes.
I would assume that.
That's going to remain intact as is.
Are you're building straight on top of that?
No, we're coming back, the second and I'm getting confused again, I apologize. By the Cheese Club or by the
Yeah,
neighbor's
on the
driveway?
Cheese Club side, the rear, and the rear.
We would be building straight up from that existing structure, that wall. So it would go up from that, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay, no other questions.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, the question on the specific variance and background you have on your presentation, the additional bulk square footages and the existing 5,180 and the proposed is 10,939, correct?
I believe so. Those are the current estimates I got off the drawings,
You
yes.
haven't marked like you did on the drawing about whether things are in conformance or non-conformance. Is it your position that that is conformance or non-conforming?
On which one,
The
sir?
increase in square footages?
No, we're asking for a variance for that. No, I'm sorry if I've misled you. I didn't do that on purpose. We're asking for a variance for all the proposed changes except for the first floor because that's remaining the same.
Okay, but the question, so the variance, you're saying it's not in compliance. So if I looked at that chart about the yeses and nos.
Correct.
If you would put this one, this would be.
I honestly didn't have time to mark it in green and blue before I came to the meeting, so I apologize for that. But the proposed would be, I'm not sure I didn't analyze the existing bulk square footage. I'm assuming that's approved. But, we're asking for more and we would need a variance for that to expand the building.
Is that it, Ed? Mm-hmm. Jess, you have anything else? Okay. With that, and we already took public comment on this case, but with that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail. Please come forward.
I just had a question about the first.
And I know you testified at a prior hearing, you were already sworn, but please state your full name just for the record.
Okay. Kim Cahomi, Kohami.
So I just had a question about the very first rendition you had put up here. They make it look like the 2.5-story section of 8 Campbell extends almost the whole length. It actually is only 41 feet long. The portion that's 2.5 stories. So what's the total length of this new building
Please
gonna be?
address your questions to us, Kim.
Pardon?
Please address your questions to the board.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So I'm just wondering, like, is that clear that the 2.5-story portion of 8 Campbell was currently only 41 feet long from the drawing? So it's not that they're just expanding the building, they're expanding the portion that's gonna be 35 feet and 5 feet off my property to extend the whole length of my property, whereas right now, it's only 41 feet. And it kind of lines up with my house.
George, do you understand what a comment?
So if you look
After
at the
she's done,
drawing,
I'll ask you to respond to the board, but, okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, we're not trying to be misleading, but yes, we are expanding the second and third floors. They're going to expand the full length of the building, the full frontage of the building. But we are moving all the floors on the second and third stories 6 feet, I believe 6 feet from your driveway. So the second and third floors will be 6 feet.
Mr. Lavin,
Yeah.
you need to.
Yes, the second and third floors will be 6 feet away from the driveway.
So the second and third floors
Will be 6 feet.
set back
Yes,
toward Darby
Road.
Road by 6 feet.
essentially 6 feet, yes.
Okay. Right. Is there anyone else that received certified mail? Anyone that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we will continue this case. When's our next meeting? September 7th? To our next regularly scheduled meeting on September 7th.
And the continuation is for the purpose of what, Bob, so I'm clear?
To allow the board, including Bill, time to digest these exhibits and determine whether they have any additional questions. If there are no additional questions, it's my hope that we would close the record that night and vote that night and dispose of the matter. Okay, so that case is continued to September 7th. And George, your exhibits were marked, you want them admitted, right? So the exhibits are admitted, okay.
Correct. Thank you, I'm sorry. The second one would be 21. Thank you.
All right. We're going to take two. The next case is going to be Z2317, Soon and Raj LLC. If you guys want to come up and get set up, we'll take two. Off the record, Jeff? All right. Our next case is Z23-17, Sun and Raj LLC, owner of 700 East Haverford Road, DC folio number 2205-003780, who seeks variances from section 182-402B1 to allow the use of the property as a vehicle refueling facility with a convenience store. Section 182-708A1 to allow a loading and unloading space in front of the building. Section 182-707B to provide 6 off-street parking spaces when 7 is required. Section 182-701E1B1 to permit the total sign area to be 140.2 square feet, where a maximum of 105 square feet is permitted. Section 182-71E1B2C to permit a freestanding sign with an area of 107 square feet when a maximum of 25 square feet is permitted. Section 182-701B4 to permit green LED lights to display fuel, diesel, and fuel pricing rather than red LED lights as required by a condition of the board for the existing sign pursuant to the zoning hearing case Z12-4 dated 5/30/2012, and any other relief as may be deemed necessary. Property is zoned C2 and located in 5th Ward.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there is a slight typo in connection with the advertisement. I believe the applicant is seeking variances from section 182-403B1, if I'm correct.
You are correct.
At this point, council, you're aware that obviously advertising is a requirement of the board in notifying potential residents and the public of the requests being sought. It is your desire to continue this evening?
Yes, we understand the risk and we would like to continue.
And for the record, I would indicate that it's a minor typo, and I would believe it's sufficient overall to satisfy the intent of the statute, but thank you for your understanding there. And I think at this point, with council recognizing the risks of continuing, we can proceed.
Okay.
Okay,
Your appearance?
great. My name is Annie Niemand. I'm an attorney from Hamburg, Rubin, Mullen, Maxwell, and Lupin. Here on behalf of Sun and Raj Fuel LLC, the owners of 700 Haverford Road. Mr. Kane, you did a great job of going through the variances we need. I will give a little bit of background, but then I know you guys have a busy night, and I'll get straight to my witnesses. So a little history about this property. Back in 1960, the current owner, or the then owner, I should say, was granted a special exception for a gas refueling, let me get the proper language, a gasoline service station. It's been used that way since then. It's changed branding a few times. It was Amoco, BP, Citgo, and now it's Phillips 66. In recent years, though, the auto repair portion of this business has not done so well for the business. There are a lot of reasons for that, which I'll have some of my witnesses speak to, but number one is, if you have a Toyota, maybe you're going to the Toyota dealership to get repairs done. So there was a steep decline in business. And so what we would like to do is adaptively reuse the property. We're not constructing anything. We just want to change the auto repair portion to a convenience store with the gas stations. Under your zoning code, the gas station cannot be accessory to the convenience store, nor can the convenience store be accessory to the gas station use. So we're here for a use variance to allow 2 uses on the property. We're here for some variances about signage. Overall, we're actually decreasing the amount of signage on the property. But since it's a new use, we need variances for that because the nonconformities won't continue. We also need a variance to allow 6 parking spots when we'd be required 7. And the last substantive one is to allow the loading, unloading space in front of the building instead of in the back. And with that, I have given you an exhibit book. We have the deed. I have 2 different CVs, one for our engineer, one for our architect. I have an existing features plan and a zoning plan. That's at A4. Signage is in A5. Those are the signage plans and zoning charts showing what relief we need. And then finally in A6, we have the floor plan and front elevations. So you can see, what we intend to do on the inside of that building and how we want the front facade to look. So with that, I'm going to call Robbie Multani up to be sworn in. He is one of the owners of Sun and Raj Fuel LLC.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear before the board this evening?
I am Rajbinder Singh. I am a owner/member of Sun and Raj Fuel LLC. Singh, S-I-N-G-H.
Sorry, I called you Multani.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. All right, Robbie. You go by Robbie, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So when did you and Sun Raj Fuel LLC acquire the property?
January 2012.
Okay, and that's the deed in Exhibit A1. And so you and your business, you run with your father, correct?
Correct.
And do you have other businesses like this in Pennsylvania?
Yes, we do.
How many, would you say?
We have 4 sites around the area.
Okay. And tell me, so there was a decline in business due to the repair shop portion
Yes.
of the business, correct?
Yes. Our friend and business partner here, Matt Wallace, he's seen a significant portion of his business come down and get decreased because of all kinds of sort of reasons, such as COVID, people going to buying newer cars, upgrading the fleet in general, and a lot of those cars have maintenance included, so he's been going there. He hasn't been making money for the last couple of years now.
So, and then And tell me, because there's always been, the ability to buy a bottle of water, or maybe a bag of chips there, correct?
That's correct.
So in that business has been very steady.
Yes,
Okay. So you would say that the business is having financial difficulties?
absolutely.
Okay. So why do you need this use variance to allow a convenience store on the property when you have the gas station?
Because a convenience store will allow us to continue operating business when fuel may one day go down, like electric cars are coming in, and convenience store will at least be able to help us survive and thrive.
So would you agree that the convenience store use is necessary to the commercial viability of
Absolutely.
the business? Okay. Are there other convenience stores like this near your property?
There's a Wawa up the road.
Okay. So would you say that there's a need for this in the area?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. If not a convenience store use to supplement the gas station use for this property, can you think of anything else that could work
There
there?
really isn't anything else that we could put there in that same footprint.
Okay, so let's get into some of the details, just so the board can be aware. How many employees are at the business right now at a time?
One employee, and then it's two during shift changeover, but usually it's one.
Do you foresee that increasing with the convenience store use?
No, not particularly.
It would stay the same. Tell me about the hours you would like to see for the convenience store and the gas station.
We'd like to see 5 to 11, but we're operating 6 to 10 now.
Okay, so if the board was so inclined to limit the business from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., that'd be okay with you?
That's fine.
But you'd prefer 5 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. And if you're not allowed a convenience store on this property, what do you foresee happening with this property over time?
Down the line, when gasoline is no longer a thing for cars and consumers, then we have to shut down. The business is going to have to eventually close and shutter its stores.
And that would be just because you wouldn't be making enough money to survive, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you think that the proposed use would have an adverse impact on the surrounding neighbors or the township?
Absolutely not. On the contrary.
All right, now tell me a little bit about parking. In your capacity as a business owner who owns, multiple businesses like this, would you say that, let me rephrase, is it a fair assumption that some customers park at the pumps?
I would say the majority of the customers park at the pumps.
So do you think 6 parking spots would be sufficient instead of 7?
More so, more than enough.
Okay, and that's because people would be parking at the pumps
Exactly.
anyway?
Exactly.
Okay. Have you spoken to any of your neighbors about the convenience store use we're proposing?
I believe, yeah, some have spoken to us. Some have come in and said that they're excited to see some expansion of the convenience store, yeah.
Have you had any negative feedback about the convenience store use?
Me directly, no.
Okay. Robbie, that's all I have for you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to continue, or do you have
No,
questions?
we usually interpose board questions when you're done your direct of the witness. Jesse?
I have no questions yet.
Jessica?
There is signage that indicates there's currently a food mart on the site. What's the size and scale of that?
Of the size and scale, it's literally a booth. You walk in, maybe 10 by 8 to walk in, and that's just the registers in the front, some equipment on the left-hand side for coolers, and one gondola area for candies and snacks.
And how much parking do you currently have right now?
And we have 3 spots.
Okay. And then my other question is, you're asking for a variance to load in the front of the building. Where does loading currently happen?
On the side street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Next, I'd like to call our engineer.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I do have a question. The question is, will the store, when you're trying to do
Yes, sir.
convenience store, can you explain some of the products? Or like, are we talking, what limits do you have on the store as opposed to you're not going to be selling cooked foods? Or
No cooked foods. That would require like a hood and stove, and we're not doing any of that stuff. Just prepackaged goods like your bottle of water, your bottle of soda, chips, snacks, stuff you can grab and go.
So no grilling and
No grilling,
okay.
no hot dogs, nothing like that.
The other question is, will you still sell auto-related products such as oil transport?
Yes,
Okay, so there'll still be that section of the store.
correct.
Okay, no other questions.
But will you continue to do auto repairs?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, I did think of some questions. As part of the auto repair business, how many cars on average would you say are on the premises taking up space? Maybe not parking spaces, but just space.
As of May, the auto repair business has shuttered its doors.
I guess, okay, then, historically then, going back, like, just so that we can, since it's been in business since the 60s, as you testified.
Right.
Kind of, I mean, ballpark, I mean, how many cars would be on the premises taking up
So
real
like
estate?
6 or 7 in the ballpark.
Okay. Are there any other, is there anything else on the site now that would be removed that were part of the auto repair business that would go away as part of this new development?
Yeah, there was some storage containers that were on site that would get removed, like the hydraulic lifts inside the building, but that's not on the outside. Besides that, it should be pretty much it.
I think I saw on your improvement plan that there will be something new built on the outside that looked like, was it screening for trash enclosure?
Yes, that's just as per code, there's a trash enclosure going to be built around the dumpster that's on site right now.
Is the dumpster currently enclosed?
No, it's not.
Okay, so you would be enclosing it to bring it in conformance?
Correct.
And for the record, what exhibit are you?
Oh, okay, well, it is,
Second page of exhibit 4.
Thanks.
I think it's the second, maybe it's
the
first.
I think the first page shows the improvement. It's called zoning plan, and it seems to indicate a proposed 8-foot by 12-foot trash enclosure. And then this also lays out the parking spaces. So you're proposing the 6, right?
Yes, 6.
And how many spaces? How many pumps are there?
4.
And is there
one diesel, 5.
Okay, 5. So there's 5 pumps, and is each pump one car per pump?
Front and back, yes. So it's it's 8 cars total at one time.
Okay. So it's part of your testimony was that most people, they pull in, they pump their gas, and they may run into the store and grab something.
Exactly right.
So there's 5 striped spaces. I'm sorry, 6, right? 6 striped spaces, and then would you say
spots.
8 spots? Okay.
Exactly, sir.
Thank you.
And we didn't ask for variances for the enclosure for the trash because we can do that to code. So we do not need a variance for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I'd like to call our engineer, Dave Damon. And you'll have to bear with us. Dave had a mishap. He tore your ACL, right? Or no,
Achilles
your
tendon.
Achilles. Oh, that
Achilles.
sounds worse somehow. Okay.
Do you want to sit? I have a mic. Or do you want to kneel?
I'll be like this. I'll be good.
You good?
For now.
Okay.
Speak loud, the mic is there.
Let's see. Let me try to get it closer to you, Dave. Okay, Dave.
Dave, if you feel the need to sit down at any point, you can sit down and just use the mic so Arlene can hear you.
No, I'm good. I didn't know whether I had to be sworn.
Yeah, you do. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear before the board this evening, please?
David Price Damon, as a civil engineering expert.
Council, I'm very familiar with Mr. Damon and his qualifications, but if you could just briefly run through the qualified.
Absolutely. Dave, I have a couple questions for you to get you qualified as an expert. So tell us about your occupation and how many years have you been doing that?
I'm currently president of H. Gilroy Damon Associates, Inc. I've been a civil engineer for 44 years, professional engineering license for the past 42 years. I have a land surveyor's license since 2007, and I've worked in Delaware County most of my career.
So you are licensed in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yes.
And have you been qualified as an expert in civil engineering before a zoning hearing board in the past?
Yes, I have.
Can you take a look at Exhibit A2, and can you confirm for me that this is a true and correct copy of your CV?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I would move to have Dave Damon accepted as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
Unless there are specific objections, many of the board members will accept David as an expert in that field.
Great, thank you so
Thank you.
much. All right, Dave, let's get to it. Tell me about your relationship with the applicant.
We're engaged to survey the property and prepare site plans for it. And yeah, we've worked with Robbie and his father for a couple other jobs, so I have a relationship with them.
Okay, and just a preliminary question. Are you familiar with the Haverford Township zoning code?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And you are also familiar with the subject property, correct?
Yes.
And the proposed use for the property to create a convenience store, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Can you just give the board a little background about the property? Let's go through just the characteristics of it. Take it away.
So it's located at 700 Haverford Road. It's the northwest corner of Haverford Road and Buck Lane. So the property's zoned neighborhood commercial, C2 neighborhood commercial. It has a total area of 17,242 square feet. Has a one-story building on it that's 1,312 square feet. The building is presently a service station, has 2 garage bay doors on the north side facing Haverford Road. As Robbie said, it has the 5 pumps out front underneath the canopy. Driveways are accessed from Haverford Road with 2 of them, with a third small drive that goes out to Buck Lane. The building's situated near the center of the property, a little bit closer to Haverford Road. And it's a service station, with refueling.
Okay. Do you know any of the history of the building and property?
Yeah, in reading through the correspondence and information from the township, that it was given a special exception in 1960, so it's been a service station under different ownership and different entities, since that time.
Okay, and what are the surrounding properties?
So on the north, the property zone C2, there's a base and top commercial store that fronts on Haverford Road. To the north, on West Avenue, is a 3-story residential building. It's also zone Z2. Going to the west, we have West Avenue. On the far side of West Avenue, there's a commercial garage property. It's zoned R4. On the south, it's bounded by Buck Lane. There's a connection to West Avenue. On the south side of Buck Lane, there's a Framers Market Gallery commercial building. I think it's zoned O2. On the east is Haverford Road. There's R6 zoning, but there's the Haverford Market is directly across from the gas station.
So it would be fair to say that the use we're proposing wouldn't be completely out of the norm for the area. There are other commercial properties.
Yeah, really on all 4 sides.
Okay. And do you know what other uses are permitted in the zoning? Hold on. One question before that. Is a convenience store use permitted by right in this C2 neighborhood neighborhood commercial district?
It is.
Okay. And do you know what other uses are permitted in the C2 neighborhood
Well,
commercial district?
they allow restaurants, takeout restaurants, personal service establishments, and other uses that are allowed in the O2 districts are also allowed in neighborhood commercial.
Okay. And did you prepare the existing features, the existing feature plan and the zoning plan that is in Exhibit A4?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So, and then let's get to the relief we're asking for. So we need a use variance to allow the convenience store use, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think that, in your professional opinion, is that a use that's compatible with the area in which the property is?
Yes, it is. There's similar uses in that neighborhood, and the convenience store is an allowable use in that zoning
Okay.
district.
So you don't think that it would adversely impact the surrounding area?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think it would be an improvement over a service station.
All right. We also need a variance to allow the loading and unloading space in front of the building, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell the board a little bit about why we need that variance?
Well, it's funny when I think about it, the property has frontages, it's unusual in that it has frontages on 3 streets, so I think we would need it, because it's gonna be in front of the building, it's gonna be facing a street no matter where we put it. But we did do a sketch plan thinking that behind the building, behind the Haverford Road front of the building, would be more like a rear yard. When we did that, we had to bring in the driveway on the south side of the building. We moved some of the parking to the rear and the loading area, and because the existing property is close to the limit of the 70% impervious, we found that we were exceeding that, so we would have needed a variance from impervious if we did move and put an additional parking space plus the parking spaces that we would have to move to get the driveway around back. So we found another, and plus historically, I think convenience stores that are smaller like this loading and unloading is done in the front, where the truck would just pull up in off hours and people, they would just restock things. When 7-Eleven, it's next to my office, it's what they do continuously.
Okay, so just to clarify for the board, will any construction be necessary to this building to make it into a convenience store use?
Well, the building's would be renovated, the doors would be removed. So there would be a sidewalk that would need to be built across the front of the building. There's a trash enclosure would be built. There's some screening that would be installed in the rear and the parking lot would require restriping, but minor construction.
Okay.
Like that.
And tell me, what's unique about the property which justifies the variances that we are requesting?
Well, as I said, it has, frontages on the 3 streets. When you look at the property area is reduced, the net property area is about 55% of what that gross property area is. So the street right-of-way is reduced that lot area. It makes the impervious coverage we have there close to the limit, and complying with the loading in the front yard and adding additional parking becomes difficult to do without having that zoning variance for impervious. So it's a unique property based on that, the existing impervious, the reduced lot area, and the frontage on the 3 streets.
Okay, so would you agree that the property is suitable for the proposed use?
Yes.
And you've already said that it would not adversely impact the surrounding properties.
No, I think it would be an improvement over the service station with the cars stacked there and congesting that area.
Okay. Would our proposed use alter the character of the neighborhood at all?
No.
And finally, are the variances that we're requesting the minimum to afford relief?
Yes, they are.
Okay, that's all I have for Dave.
Jessica,
Dave, can you just confirm that as part of this project, no additional site lighting is going to be added?
Yeah, there's no new paved areas or anything like that, so there'll be no additional lighting necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Ed,
I'm looking at the structure, to just confirm, I think I heard this correctly. So the area between West Avenue and the rear of the structure is being left impervious because you didn't want to ask for a variance to use that area. Would that eliminate, you would need a variance if you wanted to expand this building in the future?
So what I was saying is we did look at creating, a drive around the south of the building, putting a loading area on the West Avenue side of the building, putting parking back there so that we had the 7 spaces. And we were exceeding the impervious coverage in doing that, and we're ending up with parking and loading where we really don't want them.
Is it really impervious? I mean,
Well,
if you have
right now it's not impervious, but if we were to move the loading to the rear and pave it and put in,
But I'm sorry, pervious. is it currently really pervious? Because I see you have bituminous paving there, and
Well, we count that bituminous as impervious, but there's the grass and stone service. I think the township engineer would agree with me. When I went there and visited the site, I would consider it pervious.
and that's not used for parking or anything currently, or even the recent past?
Not when I was there, and not, looking at any, historical Google Earth views, I didn't see, anything parked out there.
Okay. The other question I had was the issue of the gas pumps. It looks like you were going to add a sidewalk, and I imagine there might be bullards or something that prevent, like you usually see in front of gas stations and stuff, or is it going to narrow the flow patterns between the gas pumps? There's already a pretty tight area, and he is very popular for gas because it's the lowest prices in the area, so I see a lot of people trying to get in and out of there.
Well, right now there's a door, there's access ways, so people walk in and out of there all the time. I think the side, so people use the bituminous as a walkway. We're just making it concrete. And I think there are bollards there currently, and it's something that we would definitely consider, some strategic placement of bollards to make sure that everything would be protected. But we're really not changing the walking patterns from people. They currently do park and walk in there or walk from the pumps.
So I guess what I'm saying with that sidewalk or anything new there is not going to change the existing flow patterns to the gas pumps.
No. Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Jesse?
Yeah, I just had a minor clarification. You're showing about the loading space. You're showing a 30-foot by 12-foot wide. But I think that our requirement is actually for a 12 feet by 60 feet per 182-708. But I mean, if I'm looking at the plan, it looks like you could accommodate 60. Is there a reason that you're calling it for 30?
I think there's wording in there that gives some leeway because when we brought that point to the owners, they said, well, we don't have any trucks that are that large, and the wording, as I recall, had to do with it, or it had to be a sufficient size to accommodate the use. Something to that effect.
Yeah, I'm looking for that right now.
Oh, yeah, it does say, yeah, it says, except that smaller spaces may be permitted provided that they are adequate for the size of particular delivery vehicles. Okay, so it's your testimony that the maximum delivery vehicle would be 30 feet.
Yes.
Okay, but it does, I would say it does appear that a 60-foot long could fit on the plan. And this might be a question for Mr. Singh, but if we could confirm that what the delivery hours would be for use. And I would also say for the record that it doesn't look like they would impact any of the striped parking spaces. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
No other questions?
Okay,
Please proceed. I have no questions.
okay, thank you. Hey,
Thanks.
Robbie, can you jump up here and let's just answer that question real quick before we get to John. So what time would deliveries be occurring?
Usually in the morning, 6 to 9 a.m.
Okay, and how big are the trucks that usually deliver the goods?
99% of the time, they're box trucks.
Okay,
Otherwise, they're pickup trucks and small guys.
okay.
Thank you.
My next and final witness is John Teets. He is the architect on the project. He is responsible for the plans in Exhibit A5 and A6. Okay,
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear before the board this evening?
My name is John Teets. Firm name is John Teets Architect, 415 Horsham Road, Horsham, PA, 19044.
okay,
Council, likewise, if you could briefly.
absolutely. Okay, John, tell us about your occupation and how many years have you been an architect?
I've been in the architectural field for over 50 years, but I've been a licensed architect since 1979. So it'll be our 44th year come next month.
And are you licensed in Pennsylvania?
Yes, I am.
Tell me a little bit more about what you do when you are hired onto a project like this.
Well, typically, sometimes we get involved actually before the property is purchased, In this case, the property was already in operation. And I've done other work with the same client in other locations. So it's a very common job that we do to convert existing buildings into convenience stores, since 80% of fuel is now sold in the combination convenience store with refueling. It's not just Wawa, it's all over, Turkey Hill, Sheetz, so forth. And so we do a preliminary plan. We looked at different options. We looked at going in the back, we looked at going on the side, adding to the building, and so forth. And the final decision was, due to the finances of the shop, that we would just restrict the building to the size that it is now and convert that space into the store. And so that's what we do, and then we go through these approval processes, obviously.
Well, let's get you back to the expert qualification. So
Right.
tell me, have you been qualified as an expert in architecture before any other zoning boards in Pennsylvania?
Yes, many.
Okay.
You need examples?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, Philadelphia, Upper Dublin, Horsham, Abington, Cheltenham, Bensalem, so forth.
Okay, I think that's good. I would move to have him admitted as an expert in the field of architecture.
Unless there's a specific objection from any of my fellow board members, we will admit Mr. Teets as an expert in that area.
Thank you so much. John, so you touched on this, but tell me about your relationship with the applicant.
We've done numerous projects in Norwood, in City Line Avenue in Wynwood, also in New Jersey. I'm licensed there as well.
And were those projects similar to this?
To some degree, they're all a little different, but some were conversions of repair space to a store. In the case of Norwood, they had 4 bays and they kept 2, and we turned 2 plus the existing building into a store.
Okay.
And the other one, we turned the car wash portion that was attached, added that to the store. So they're all a bit different. But the point is, some people have tried other combinations with a fueling facility and none of them have worked, such as drive-in dry cleaners, things like that. This is the only one that's really been stable, and this is a dominant conversion strategy.
Okay. And so tell me about the plans that you developed for the applicant on this project.
Right. So we went through a few iterations. We tried to, there's a lot of things we have to take into account, of course, that you can actually see the pumps from behind the counter and so forth. This is a self-serve facility. And obviously, we went different iterations on the coolers. As you probably know, in this type of facility, one of the biggest profit makers is energy drinks, canned goods. It's not even as much soda anymore. It's mostly alternative drinks, which have a good profit margin.
Okay. So you also did the plans for the signage on the property,
Right.
correct?
I did.
So let's go through the history of the signage on the property, and I'm going to pull up so the people behind me can see. All right, so tell us about the signage on the property, please.
Okay. This is the sign as it exists today. It was a conversion from a Citgo sign. And so they went to Phillips 66, which is the same as, it's part of Conoco and Phillips 66 are the same company. It's a top-tier gas. It's a very quality-oriented gas, and which is perhaps one reason to do it. And it tends to undercut the other top-tier gases. So they have the mainline Food Mart sign, and then Wallace Auto Service, which we'd be removing. So if you look at the diagram on the left, shows the existing. On the right shows that we're taking the auto service sign out, which also enhances the viewpoint of people coming down the same direction as those cars you see. And particularly with so many people driving SUVs anymore, they're higher up. It allows a much clearer way for people going in and out of the station as you're coming down the road. So it's a safety consideration. It brings it up to 7'9" clear.
And Annie, did you point out that we're looking at Exhibit A5, just so we have a clean record?
Thank you so much. We are looking at Exhibit A5, folks. Okay, so John, would it be clear, or would it be fair to say that we would be decreasing the size of
Well,
the
we are.
freestanding monument?
Right.
Okay. And were there non-conformities with the sign before?
Right, yes, it did not set back, and the location and so forth, and the size. I mean, the allocation for signage is fairly generous, but that for the freestanding sign is fairly low at only 25 feet. So this is not a particularly large sign. Many of them are 8 foot wide. This one's narrower. But this is a pre-existing condition, and I believe it was brought up simply the fact that we're changing the use. But the sign itself was already grandfathered. It could stay as it is if the use stayed the same.
But so, and just to really put a fine point on that,
Yeah.
so if we weren't trying to change the use, we wouldn't need that variance, correct?
Right.
Okay. Now, that is all I need from you on the freestanding monument sign. Let's go on to the next page of your plans. This shows other signage on the property. Tell me about this.
Okay, well, on the building, there was an existing oval sign.
And this is Exhibit A6, correct?
This is the second page of Exhibit A5.
Wait a minute, Annie. The second page
Nope,
of
you're-
Exhibit A5 is,
I'm so sorry, Mr. Kane. You were right. This is Exhibit A6,
okay.
the second page of it. And on the plan, it's marked as the front elevation.
Okay. So there's an oval sign which simply says service, which is now defunct. So that was 20 square feet. And we're proposing a slightly larger sign, but the signable area, which was also a criterion in the zoning code, was 33 square feet, so we're under that. So you take the signable area, we have to take the areas that are not covered by glass or doors. And so if you add all that up, that's where that 33 came from. And if you knock it down, can you drop that a bit?
Yeah.
And then the rest of the wall signs were these little Phillips 66 logos, which are very small
Up here, yeah.
on the canopy. So the combined area for signage, for wall signage, is well under.
Okay. And so then tell me why we need variances for these signs too.
I believe it's simply because of the change of use that when you do the signs, it has to be reworked, and the freestanding signs really what drove it because of the sign area. We are over on total signage. So if you take down a sign, it's like it never existed, and you put it back. So even though we're reducing it in total, we're over to start with. So that's the way these things work.
So, and then let's move to the last variance we're requesting. And that has to do with the diesel prices on the freestanding monument. So
Right.
tell me why we need the variance to make the numbers for diesel green.
The de facto, everybody's trying to avoid difficulties and with identification. If you put diesel into a gas-powered car or vice versa, it creates real problems. So the industry standard has been to create green for diesel. In fact, my son has a diesel pickup, and the gas cap is green. If you go to the stations now, they're making the handles green, and the digital signage is green. And as you can see on the existing sign, when they said you couldn't do it years ago, he made the background green. But I read some of the trade magazines since I do a lot of work in this industry, and approximately 70% of people with diesels do not stop if they don't see the green. They don't even read the small print, because you can see how diesel is like 2-inch letters, and the other's like several times bigger. So that's pretty much behind it. The original reason that some boards prohibited that is that they said, well, people could confuse red and green with the traffic light. But that's pretty much gone by the boards. In fact, I just passed one in Haverford Town, a Conoco, and it's right on the busy corner. And it's a different shape, it's a slightly different green, and the shapes are totally different. And that's pretty much been discarded. But nonetheless, we asked for the variance because the wording didn't specifically say you couldn't do it, but it's often been interpreted in the past as meaning that. So we wanted to get it clear, because they'd like to be able to, and it's not like semis are going to come in here. I mean, we don't have the space, maneuvering space for that. But you have a lot of people with trucks, pickup trucks, people with the landscape business, and a lot of those are diesel. So it's a significant business because they're fueling not only the truck, but if they have a trailer and so forth, you know, the vehicles on the trailer, those small little motors and things.
Sure, and I'd make a quick note for the board's edification that we're also asking for the variance for the green lettering on the signs, just because the variance that we've gotten to allow the red LED light said it was going to be red, and if we wanted to change it, we needed a variance. So out of an abundance of caution, we threw that in too. So let's go through the general variance standards just to cross my T's, dot my I's. Okay, so do you think that the proposed use is suitable for the property?
Yes, I do. In fact, I really couldn't think of an alternative, really.
Okay, and do you think that the proposed use will adversely impact the surrounding properties?
No, I mean, I was there when all these cars were parked there as a service facility, and it's a cleaner use, it's a quieter use, and particularly, you know, I prefer it if I were living there.
Okay, and so you don't think that it will alter the character of the neighborhood?
No. Now, given there's other facilities, it's not like it's in the middle of a residential area,
Okay,
but there's other facilities that are even next door that are not different in type that much.
okay, and my last question, are the variances that we are requesting the minimum to afford relief?
Yes, we've actually reduced what we were originally had in mind to try to minimize it. I believe this is about the least you can do that's economically possible.
John, that's all I have for you, but the board might have questions.
Sure.
Ed?
Yeah, I was probably one of the ones that said that we can't have green on that because of the curve in the road coming around that corner, that it would represent a hazard, and I'm still of that belief. Our ordinance also says that the sign would be not allowed to have that type of digital, so that was a concession to begin with. So giving a further concession to allow two colors, which is not allowed by our ordinance, I don't know the justification, because I don't think anybody's going to put diesel fuel in their vehicle from looking at the sign. So
We're concerned that they won't get the fuel because they're looking at the sign. That's what the industry says. It says 70% of the people just keep going on to the next place. They don't think they have diesel. They just look at the numbers. Because typically you have either 2 or 3 numbers. Now it's getting more popular even to have just 2, regular and diesel. You see that a lot, like on the Wawas and some of the others. So,
yeah, okay, so the question is whether your economic issue is enough to overcome the ordinance and propagate this down into all different signs and have multicolored signs, which we have not allowed anywhere in the township. I'm not sure about Conoco, but you said Conoco. Which one the behind
on Westchester Pike. Yeah, it's a big Conoco.
I don't know that we approved the green sign.
No, it's not your township. I mean, you know, it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's in Haverford Town.
Yeah, Haverford, we have not approved.
Yeah, no.
Okay, thank you.
Next, your neighbor, but nonetheless.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it is common. I've seen them.
Yes, I have seen them too, and it has a difference of opinion between if it's located in an area not associated with a traffic sign, which is around the curve. That's a different issue than maybe that one you're referencing. That's all I have.
Jesse?
The other exterior improvements, I don't know if you went through them, but are essentially you're removing, I assume, like garage doors. I'm not exactly familiar with the current.
Yeah, where those 2 triple windows are were existing garage doors, and we're maintaining the head height there.
You're referring to?
Exhibit A6, page 2, which is the front elevation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the same one we were looking at the sign, wall signs for.
Right. So where the oval sign is being removed and replaced with a new square mainline Food Mart sign. There are 2 sets of windows that are replacing existing garage doors. Is that correct?
Right, and then we're filling up the bottom and running stone across the bottom, like a wainscot.
Are there any other changes to the facade?
Well,
currently,
yeah, the doors are being replaced. It's currently a single door, which is not really ADA accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is, rather than going with a larger door, because there are a lot of things that go in and out of convenience stores over time, equipment and so forth, doesn't really fit through a 32-inch net opening. So we have a door with a fixed leaf, which is common in a lot of facilities now. So that allows larger equipment to go in while still maintaining a manageable door to meet the pull requirement and poundage for handicapped. And the windows are changed, and we're going to leave the existing roof. We have to patch that, and we're going to reface the general front, you know, with the more aesthetic materials.
And I believe you previously mentioned that the visibility from the counter to the pumps was important, so that would lead me to think that the glass will be clear glass?
Yes, it is clear. It's also that way for security purposes, so the police can see in.
And there won't be another issue that comes up a lot when we're talking about signage is that there's signage on the building, but then oftentimes people are looking to put signage on the glass. Is there any
I don't
plans?
know. I mean, typically, most businesses now have that little oval sign that says open, so people don't stop when they're closed. I can't say whether they have that in mind or not, but usually that's never an issue. If you start doing other things, then that's, you'd have to talk to the owner if he has any plans in that regard or not.
And we will.
Yeah, I should see a couple things in the corner where there's a corner window where there's some items in front. So I just wondered if there's any signage graphic that would cover that up, or if it just happens to be placed in front of the window. There's no plans for signage on the windows.
No, we
Well,
didn't.
that's Raj.
Okay.
Robbie?
He doesn't know. It's okay. Let's finish with Jessica.
I have no questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's bring Raj back up. Just
Robbie?
Robbie. So I'll ask the question.
Yes, sir.
Would you accept as a condition of approval, if your application is approved, that no additional signs be placed in the windows?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Good, Jess?
Yes.
The only question I have there is, I saw in one of the sketches, and that would be, I think it was exhibit 6, page 1. You have a lotto machine in there. Is there any requirements with the lottery that you put signage up front, or is there any?
They're pretty amenable to the
Okay.
requirements of the township. So if you guys say we have no signs, we have no signs.
Just want to make sure. Okay.
Anything else, Jess?
No.
Jessica? Ed?
Yeah, the question that comes up when looking at that with the lottery machine and the Bitcoin, I don't know what that is, but the two skill machines. Can you explain about what that entails?
Pennsylvania skill games are a skill game that a lot of people use around this area nowadays. It's just another lottery machine, essentially.
Would you sit there and play it?
Yeah, well, it depends on the customer. Some guys, they just put $1 and they push a
Is
button.
it restricted in age that can use it?
Isn't it more of a, and correct me if I missed it.
Yes, sir.
Like a self-service
Correct.
scratch-off lottery ticket?
No, that's the lotto machine
Oh.
that Mr. Ernie was asking for. The skill games are like essentially you go play a playable game, like almost like an arcade game. Arcade game?
Yeah, they're not regulated by the Gaming Commission. They're not considered a game of chance. They're considered a skill game. At least that's how they're defined right now.
Correct.
At the risk of showing my age, are you talking like a Pac-Man machine? And I know that, like, quiet.
What's wrong with Pac-Man?
Anything's wrong with Pac-Man?
It's equivalent to, most of them have monitor screens, and it looks like a arcade game, but it's, a game of skill, so to speak. There's still some pretty hot contention up at the state level as to whether or not they're gambling or not, but as of right now, they are not considered gambling, and they're not restricted by the Gaming Commission.
I guess the condition is that a hard thing for you? Because it's sort of like another use of an arcade type of game.
If you go through convenience stores throughout the Pennsylvania region now, they're everywhere.
7-Eleven had the
7-Eleven, you'll see
I
it.
mean, Haverford, Wawa.
I don't think I've seen it in a Wawa, but I've definitely seen it in other convenience stores of this size.
But if you were going to be denied because of that, you'd want to keep those.
I'd want to keep those, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Please proceed, Annie.
So just a really brief closing. We think that this is a fairly straightforward application. We're not trying to build anything new. We're just trying to save a business that is on the decline. And again, the signage variances we're asking for, we probably wouldn't need to ask for unless we needed the use variance. With that, I will give you back the rest of your night and ask that my exhibits be moved onto the record.
They're admitted, and we're going to accept public comment now, so you'll want to listen closely, I'm sure.
Yes.
And before we do that, any other questions for the applicant? Jessica, Ed?
No.
Jesse? No. Okay. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify. Anyone that received regular mail, please come forward.
Good evening.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
My full name is Marilia, M-A-R-I-L-I-A, Marion, M-A-R-I-E-N. I'm a resident of Buck Lane, 713 Buck Lane.
And what would you like to tell us this evening, Marilia?
Okay, so I've just prepared some comments to make sure I can say everything I'd like to say. So first of all, thank you for listening to the public comment. I'm a resident of Buck Lane, and I live close to the property for which the variances are being requested. I've been living on Buck Lane for the last 20 years plus, and have appreciated the residential, family-friendly feel of our community. I'm speaking to you today to ask you to not grant the variances being requested that will allow the property at 700 Haverford Road to be turned into a convenience store in addition to the already existing gas station. After reading the property owner's application materials, I want to share my overall and some specific concerns about the change. So overall, using the site for other than its current use as a gas station that incidentally sells a small number of items will create a greater commercialization in an area that is not actually zoned for that kind of level of commercialization. I'm concerned that allowing the property to be used for two principal uses could lead to a deterioration in the safety, livability, and residential nature of Buck Lane, as well as the surrounding neighborhood. So more specifically, my concerns are these. So in the application, the owner states, and I'm quoting a bit here, the applicant's proposed use is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the zoning ordinance. A little later on it says, and if granted, the proposed use will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or detract from or impair the appropriate use of adjacent properties. The proposed use will not negatively impact the public health, safety, or welfare in any way. So at its face, it's just not clear how this statement could be made so strongly and with such confidence and so easily. So my concerns are that allowing the property to be both primarily used as a gas station and a larger convenience store will detract from our community more than it will actually support and help it. The residents who live most closely to the area and the community members who live and work in the area should not have to shoulder the potential negative impacts that might come from this. Another convenience store placed at what is already a hazardous and busy intersection is not something that our community actually really needs. There are already convenience stores such as a Wawa, a 7-Eleven close by, and those of us that live near this gas station can actually walk to an Acme and get what we need there. In the application, it says, if permitted, the proposed use will not overcrowd the land. It seems from the request, such as to have 6 instead of 7 parking spots and a loading-unloading zone in front of the store, that visitors to the gas station and the convenience store will have to compete for parking, whether they use the space at the pumps or the 6 spots that are supposed to be available. The application says, if granted, the proposed use will not substantially increase vehicular traffic, nor will it create any visual or functional conflict with any nearby uses. So it seems to make sense that the property owner wants to be able to sell more things, and frankly, I'm a little concerned to hear that there's even more than I realized. I didn't know what skill meant as well. I'm glad you asked. So it seems to make sense that the property owner wants to be able to sell more things at the location to entice people to make the decision to stop by their store location. I imagine that the hope is that actually more people will choose to stop at their location rather than continue on another half mile to the Wawa or a little further to the 7-Eleven. I can also imagine that the owner would want more people to come to their location and that a convenience store, in addition to the gas station, is the way to do it. And that's kind of what they've said, understandably. So from this reasoning, though, my concern is that there is a desire for, and will likely be, increased, particularly truck traffic and car traffic at an already dangerous intersection and busy street. A larger convenience store complete with a bakery section, lotto, Bitcoin, ATM machines, and other items consistent with a food mart will by design bring increased foot and vehicle traffic. The applicant noted that in the gas station business, green lights are often used to display diesel fuel prices. In fact, studies have shown that many truck drivers only stop at gas stations with green lights. The applicant wishes to request that this variance in order to capture the business of such truck drivers. So again, the concern is that this will lead to more diesel truck traffic and more truck traffic in general. The gas station could become known as the place for trucks to stop on Haverford Road for diesel. So more trucks driving in and idling while they wait to pull up to the pumps means more noise and more exhaust pollution. Trucks also, in general, just take up more space, more room, adding to the sense of cramming more traffic into the entrances and exits of the gas station, again, on an already busy corner. The increased traffic overall is especially dangerous for children. Buck Lane has 2 schools, has a house of worship, playing fields. There's school bus stops nearby, and school buses obviously coming up and down Buck Lane. And the concern is that this makes life more dangerous and more difficult for the children of the neighborhood and their parents. Finally, the requested relief is necessary to the commercial viability of the applicant's business. That's what it says in the application. So the applicant noted that they wish to adaptively reuse the building as a convenience store with refueling facilities in order to remain commercially viable. I understand and respect the desire to make their property as commercially viable as possible. However, it shouldn't come at the expense of the community in which they've bought the property. While the property owner stands to profit from changing the use of this property, my concern is that it will come at the expense of residents. The owner is forthcoming about their trying to expand what the property is used for to maintain commercial viability. But what I don't hear is that there's an interest in this improving the living conditions for the community. I don't see that at all in the application. Or to offer a service that they think will make life easier for residents. Granting variances that make a property nestled within a residential community should take into account much more than the property owner's desire to increase profitability. I ask you not to place the profit of one business owner over the well-being of the people of Buck Lane and the surrounding neighborhood. This property already has a non-conforming use. Also, the community has been working with state and local agencies and officials to engage in traffic calming initiatives. In keeping with these important and community-supporting efforts, the direction to go is not to make properties like this one more non-conforming and commercial. Rather, I think the way to go is to make them more conforming to the spirit and residential nature of the community in which they reside. I want to say thank you for listening to my comments, and thank you for your work on behalf of the neighbors. I do have one question that came up from listening to the comments. So my question is, one of my largest concerns actually of having an expanded convenience store is that at some point it will be like, well, let's make more money and let's make it now 24/7, and so it stays open 24/7. From what I'm reading and what I heard today, it sounds like the ordinance or the variance that was originally granted in 1960 puts the hours of operation, what I read was 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. So what I'm hearing now is a desire to open it at 5 a.m. And my question is whether, am I hearing that correctly? And is that the plan?
That is what their expressed desire was, but 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Are the hours that they suggested they would be be restricted to.
Okay. So that's already a change. I know it's the same number of total hours, but it's starting a little bit earlier. Again, my concern is just more of a slippery slope, and that, again, I can understand people's desire to make things more profitable, but the slippery slope may lead to just more, impact, a negative impact on the community. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Jessica?
No questions.
Ed?
No questions.
Jesse?
No.
Okay, thank you I'm sorry. Annie?
So thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? Please come forward. Hello. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
My name is Ellen Lickey, that's spelled Luecké, and I live at 756 Buck Lane.
I'm sorry, 756, Ellen?
Yes, Buck Lane.
Okay, what would you like to tell the board this evening?
First, thanks for the opportunity to have the community speak about this application. I'm here this evening as a neighbor as well as representing the Brynford Civic Association. I have a few questions that the Brynford Civic Association would like to raise while also leaving time for other neighbors who might want to speak. I'll start out by saying the applicant wants to add a second use to this property, which would be an expansion of the current use generated by special exception. And we would like to know how this additional use will impact local traffic, other businesses, and residential neighbors. The community would like to specifically request more information related to the possibility of increased traffic on an already busy and dangerous stretch of Haverford Road. Many in our neighborhood do use this gas station, and we want it to succeed, but we note that it is already challenging to enter, exit, and maneuver around the station as it currently is.
Well, Ellen, may I ask, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you think closing the repair business, the auto repair business, I think a lot of the clutter of cars that were previously located on the property related to the repair business, and they won't be there anymore. Do you think that would alleviate some of the congestion and moving around within the gas station?
I mean, I would be curious to see more information about, I think we heard tonight the number of 6 to 7 cars. I haven't counted when I've been there before. I just will say, from personal experience, when the pumps have been full and I've pulled in and needed to figure out where can I wait for an available pump, it's been challenging. So yes, I suppose that is possible. There is also a change from, I think, what was previously stated as 3 parking spaces to 6. So there might be cars parked in similar spots to where cars were parked for the repair shop before.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
that's fine. Okay, so I think, this has been raised already, but the application states there will be no change in traffic, but it seems like the express purpose of expanding the use of this business and the specific diesel signage that's been discussed would be to increase patronage. So in addition to the vehicular traffic, a convenience store would also attract pedestrians, including kids. So I think our main question is, how have traffic safety issues been considered? How would the township provide safe crossing of Haverford Road? The current crosswalk at Buck Lane might require improvements with timing, sound, lighting, or markings. How do traffic considerations for the site fit within other local or state initiatives, including the Haverford Road corridor that's proposed by PennDOT's Road Diet and the Brynford Safe Streets Study? If a traffic study has not been conducted, we would ask the board to request such a study to consider how additional traffic would affect the area. Preferably not during the summer when we know the traffic is a little bit lighter, and also after the Brynford Safe Streets Study has been issued, which we anticipate to be made public in the next few weeks. So in closing, I would like to request 2 things. One, the original drawing, the loading zone label was hard to define, so if we could clarify that the loading zone markings indicate the loading zone, that would be helpful for us.
That I'll ask counsel for the applicant to do on the relating exhibit.
Yeah.
Once you're done
Okay, and then we would also like to request a continuance to allow for additional discussion at the next zoning hearing board on September 7th, as many members of our association are taking end of summer trips and are not available to attend today. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We're going to go off the record. Jeff? I'll ask if there's anyone else that received regular mail, please come forward. Any other residents of Haverford Township? Hello?
Hello.
Been a little while.
It's been a while, but here we are again.
Well, I need to swear you in this case. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and address for the record?
Doreen Sarr, 748 Rugby Road, Bryn Mawr.
What was your address again, Doreen? 748?
748 Rugby Road.
What would you like to tell us tonight, Doreen?
Okay, well, first of all, we've heard no testimony on the only relevant issue. And that's the central issue to be decided by the board on a variance request is whether there's an unnecessary hardship. And in fact, there has been not one word of an unnecessary hardship. The testimony was also mostly conclusive with no foundation or evidence. Now, I'm going to sort of cycle back a bit. I live nearby, and as others have indicated, the gas station is located really on two established residential communities. It's important to know that Haverford Road is not commercial, but that in fact it is residential. And so if you go and you, for example, look at the Midas shop nearby, it's a non-conforming use. Also, the engineer testified that the market across the street is commercial when it is not. It is zoned R6 residential. So this is a small sea of neighborhood commercial uses in a residential community. And this, of course, as everyone has said, this is a very dangerous spot. Now, I serve on the Shade Tree Commission of the township, and I would urge you all to go and drive into and out of this gas station to see how difficult and how much there is in traffic issues. This is on two corners. It's almost impossible to pull in and out on Haverford Road. And if you go, as I go when I use the station, which I do for gas, if you go onto Buck Lane, you have cars coming from Buck Lane, and then you have cars coming down Buck Lane on a hill. So it's a very dangerous intersection. And frankly, the idea of a convenience store there is sort of funny because no one is going to cross Haverford Road to get to this convenience store. It's only going to be cars. And there have been numerous accidents in the area, as well as recently as a few weeks ago, and deaths of pedestrians and drivers. So this is a very problematic area. Now, the gas station seeks a variance to operate both the gas station and a convenience store. Under the Municipal Planning Code, the Zoning Hearing Board has to see that if the applicant shows that the current zoning inflicts an unnecessary hardship on the property. Both the Municipal Planning Code and the Haverford Township zoning code spell out identical and clear standards and criteria on what is required to show an unnecessary hardship. A variance may be granted only in limited circumstances. Financial motives or economic benefit is not one of them. The applicant has not and cannot meet its burden of showing an unnecessary hardship, and therefore the application should be denied. Both the Municipal Planning Commission Code and the Haverford Township ordinances make it clear that the first standard for a variance is unique physical circumstances or conditions peculiar to the property. And the unnecessary hardship is due to the unique condition and not generally by zoning in the district. And the code is clear what the physical condition is. Irregularity, narrowness, shallowness of lot size, shape, or irregular topographical. There are no special conditions of the property, none shown by the applicant. It's mostly suitable for a residence, office, or a gas station. Second, because of those physical conditions, there is no possibility that the property can be developed in strict conformity within the code, and a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. Again, the applicant has not met its burden of showing there is no other reasonable use of the property. Third, the hardship cannot be created by the applicant. The board needs to hear much more evidence about the circumstances that led to the so-called hardship. We really don't see how that's come about. There's been speculation about gas, lack of gas stations, lack of people using repair shops, but no hard evidence of that. Fourth, and most important, the variance will not alter the character of the neighborhood, impair adjacent property, or be detrimental to the public welfare. The applicant has not met its burden on this. Character, increased commercialization, large signage, more traffic, more dangerous at an already dangerous location. No evidence presented by the applicant going to safety and character of the neighborhood. Fifth, minimum necessary. In fact, this is the maximum necessary because they are in fact changing and adding another use. So minimum necessary would not be, this is not in fact the minimum as they claim, but it is a maximum change. Now, the other thing, in the specifics of the variances that are applied for, the current zoning, first of all, under 185.403C2, it allows only one use to occupy the property. And it says, in any C2 district, land or buildings or premises may be used or occupied by only one of the following. So they could have a convenience store, but they cannot have a gas station on the same property under the code. 3, the applicant plans to retain the gas pumps. Despite the creative change of language by the applicant to refueling facilities, under the Haverford ordinances, 182-106B, under definitions, a gasoline service station is a lot of land together with any structure thereon used for the retail sale of motor fuel and lubricants. So that use remains. So you have then 2 uses on the property. The variance from the 182.7801A to allow an loading and unloading space in front of the building is not supported by much information. Given the proposed conformation of the lot, the variance would violate several sections of the ordinance. The fact that it should be in the rear, the fact that the unloading should be 12 by 60 feet long, that all loading spaces be designed to provide adequate maneuvering area to enter and exit the loading space. And if you look at the conformation that has been presented on the maps, that's really just not true. And I'll come back to that. No loading space shall overlap, occupy, or otherwise interfere with required driveways and parking spaces. And required off-street parking space, including aisles, shall not be used for loading and unloading. And you really have that situation there if you look at their map. Now, the request of the variance for 182.707B to require 6 off-street parking when 7 is required is supported by the suggestion that customers can park at the pumps. Given the tightness of the existing property Now, one of the things we haven't talked about is under the Haverford Township codes, you need 32,000 feet for a gas station, square feet. This has 17,000 square feet. So this is a sort of a mini version of a gas station. So you're taking a mini version of a gas station which does not have adequate access room and does not have adequate turning, and you can have experienced this if you've ever been to this spot, and adding to it a convenience store, which in itself requires, I believe, I've forgotten, something like 8,000 square feet. So you're really taking a 17,000, and you're having two uses, both of which are would be on the tightest of possible areas. And if anyone has used the pumps there, has experienced the log jams at the pumps, the fact that a car can be left at the pump would create problems for the flow of traffic. If the applicant wants only 6 spaces, the proposed building could be reduced by 100 square feet rather than losing a space under the ordinance. And you really have to understand, when you go into these 4 spaces to get around it, people will come out and pull onto the sidewalk. And there is not the required 40 feet from the pumps to the middle of the street. So it doesn't have that space on the side to kind of come around there. On the signage, that's within this. There's I think I support Mr. McGargy on the use of green lights at this dangerous intersection because it might distract drivers and lead them to believe they have the right to proceed. But I will return you to the important words of Oxford Corporation via the Zoning Board of the Borough of Oxford. The Commonwealth Court held, the reasons for granting a variance must be substantial, serious, and compelling. Variances should be granted sparingly and only under exceptional circumstances. A variance will not be granted simply because a zoning ordinance deprives the owner of the most lucrative or profitable uses of the property. Economic hardship, short of rendering the property valueless, does not justify the grant of a variance. And in this case, certainly the gas station, as a pumping station and for the sale of gas, can continue. Is it the most profitable? No. But in fact, the owners of the property have, in fact, over the years, managed to gain profit from having a gas station where a gas station should really have never been, just because of the size and the location. Thank you. I think that's all I have.
Questions? Jesse? Ed? Jessica? Annie? Thank you, Doreen. Any other residents? Please come forward. And you don't need to be redundant. If you just simply agree with something someone else said, we have 2 other cases we need to get to, and I don't want to cut anyone off, but please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
My name is Diane Durant Law, and that's DRENTLAW. And I'm at 738 Rugby Road. The curve just up from the gas station, which prevents people from driving out onto Haverford Road from the station, actually seeing the cars that are zipping around that corner coming towards it. So I'm going to keep my comments, which are questions that I'd like to ask, very brief, and I will not try to repeat things that have been said. Questions include, would the applicant be leaving lights on in the building overnight because it's, you know, there are products in there? Is that something that would be lit at night from inside and therefore be viewed by the neighboring residents? Would the skill games be considered gambling, and is there an age limit for skill games? And would it be drawing kids in? And again, with kids coming in, what would the township be doing to ensure that children, kids who want to go to a convenience store from, say, Buck Lane or Preston or one of the other streets nearby, how would the township propose that kids are going to safely cross there when that intersection is probably not safe enough right now? And how would the station view cars being able to exit out onto Buck Lane to make the turn, where Buck and West come together, to make the turn then to wait at the intersection at Buck? How would those cars exiting there be able to do so when trucks are loading and unloading? I'm just really hoping that there could be more answers to how the flow could happen within this very tight area with more cars coming in and out. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, questions? Amy, do you have any questions? Jessica? Ed? Thank you. Any other residents? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Full name and address for the record, please.
My name is James Francis Sivos. That's S-Z-I-V-O-S. And I live at 737 Buck Lane. And I am the homeowner as well. So I thank everyone that's spoken. I think they brought up some great points. I want to talk a little bit about pedestrian traffic. And my concern with the additional traffic, vehicular traffic that will be traversing the site there. So at this time, if you look at Haverford Road and Buck Lane, you are allowed to cross either direction at the four corners. At this time, there are no pedestrian walkways that are explicitly defined. And the way that the sidewalks work they're actually catty corner to one another. And with the way that West comes in and dumps onto Buck as it approaches Haverford Road, it just makes a pretty disastrous sort of experience as a pedestrian. And I do walk there with my wife and my two children very frequently. There are a lot of community members that are on the south side of Buck that come up the hill to go to Preston Field or to go to the polo field. Vice versa, there are people who are on the north side that like to walk into the neighborhood near Coopertown Elementary School. So I do believe that adding two purposes to the building will draw additional vehicular traffic, and I am concerned about the what effect that's going to have on the pedestrians and the safety. It is, as others have described, a very dangerous intersection just because of the way that convenience store and gas station is located with West and Buck Lane right there. In fact, my car was hit most recently on Buck Lane, I think it was back in February. And the claim there from the driver was that he was blinded by lights already. So anyways, so those are my concerns. And
Question, Amy?
there's
Jesse?
questions.
Jessica? Ed?
No.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
James. Anybody else? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and address?
John Brendan Cunningham, 827 Penn Street.
And what would you like to tell us, John?
I transit Haverford Avenue frequently by the gas station under discussion. I'd like to add my support to other comments about the traffic flow, and I find the claim that that granting the variance will not have an effect on traffic flow at odds with the stated intent of keeping the property commercially viable, which I would think would necessitate increased traffic flow. The combination of the approach there, coming around the curve, the position of the driveways, and the limited space to maneuver within the property concerns me, as unfortunately drivers do not always act prudently. And that is all I have to say.
Okay, questions? Amy? Jesse?
No.
Jessica? Ed?
No question.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Amy, do you have anything else to add?
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
I'm going to have Dave Damon come back up and try to assuage some of these concerns. Dave, what would you like to add?
Well, and just in general, switching from the service station is going to remove a lot of the congestion. If you've been there, on the West Avenue side of the site, cars are typically stacked too deep, and it does create some maneuverability issues as well as sightline issues. On the north side of the building, there's large storage containers, so cars that are parked there, again, stick back further into those access lanes than the proposed convenience store layout would be. Those would be removed. There would be much more maneuvering space, much more visibility. Adding that sidewalk provides safety for the pedestrian, so it's a 5-foot sidewalk in front of the building. There's still 12 and a half feet of a lane till you get to the pump island. The convenience station stores, it's 1,312 square feet. It's very small. That's the gross square footage, 27 by 48. It really isn't going to result in generating any substantial additional traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm sure you've seen traffic engineers come before you and testify. But I'm 99% certain, well, I'm 100% certain, if a traffic engineer comes in here and gives you a study, that's what he's going to say. There's really no impact. There's a lot of traffic on Haverford Road. What a small convenience area like this, it's really people coming to get gas that say, I'm going to go get a soda while I go pay for my gas. It's not people, a destination like a Wawa would be where you're going there to get your lunch. I think that's what a traffic engineer is going to conclude. It's going to have very little impact on the traffic generated. But I think there are some good safety improvements. To removing that lower panel on that sign is going to increase the visibility of people looking towards that curve, so they'll have better sight lines looking to the north as they're exiting. And the pedestrian safety from the crosswalks, there's a clear walkway that would get you into that area should families come and want to visit the site. They can get in without really getting into any traffic areas for people leaving the pumps, so that they can walk along that West Avenue and then up through the sidewalk past the handicap parking. I think that's really what I want to say. I think it's a safety improvement, and I don't think the traffic generation concerns are warranted.
And I have one more question for you, Dave. So in your experience as an engineer, you've gone through so many different zoning codes. Is it a little peculiar that the zoning code here doesn't allow the sale of convenience items as an accessory use to a gas station.
I guess it is a little bit surprising to me that isn't allowed, because it's so typical.
That's all I have for Dave.
Questions? Jessica? Ed?
No questions.
Jesse?
Real quick, are there any changes to the curb cuts currently or the traffic flow in and out planned?
No, there'd be no changes to those curb cuts, and the traffic flow would be pretty much maintained the way it is, just a little bit safer with the less congestion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Doreen, we have 2 more cases that we have to hear tonight. So, I mean, I'll give you 1 minute just out of courtesy, because we've sort of gotten to know each other over time. You need to come forward, but
I'm going just to say one thing about the configuration. The removal of the cars that were in the back would make no change because you cannot really exit from that section. The fact the cars that were parked with the garage are never really the problem. They're not deep. Maybe they're, at most, they would fill in the same areas that would be filled in with the parking for the convenience store. So, and this is, his testimony is mostly speculation.
thank you. With that, we'll close, and you're through, Amy?
I am.
Okay, we'll close the record on this case. The decision will be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on September 7th.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. All right, our next case will be Z23-15, Christopher Munn and Dana Goodyear, owners of 2213 Haverford Road, Ardmore, PA, DC folio number 2206 00097805. Please keep it down as you exit. We seek a variance from the provisions of section 182, 208C2G. They took my hammer away. Yeah, or I'd be. Excuse me, we have 2 more cases to do tonight, so if you guys want to talk, please go out into the hallway. Thank you.
Are you done?
This is-
You've
Seek a variance.
You've been distracting me the whole night. Stop.
Seek a variance from the provisions of section 182, 208C2G to construct a 16-foot by 15-foot rear deck that would encroach into the required 25-foot rear yard setback by 12 feet 7 inches. Property is zoned R6 and located in the 6th Ward. Hi.
Hi. I think I need to be sworn in.
Yes, I need to swear you in. Please raise your right hand.
Right here.
Right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Dana Goodyear, 2213 Haverford Road, Ardmore, 19003.
Okay, now, Dana, what was her exhibit packet? Hold on 1 second, Dana. Guess we don't know this is all of your approval. Rip them off, mark them.
Yeah,
Okay.
just
We'll, off the record, Arlene. So you heard us, everybody refer to exhibits, right? So there are things that you attach to your application that you're going to want to refer to when you tell us what you want to do and why. I'm not sure exactly what you probably want this. So why don't you and I don't want to tell you what to do, I'm just trying to help you traverse this process a little. I think you're gonna want to have these marked as exhibits, so there's 6 things. If you agree, because it's your case, and I can't tell you what to do, then you could give them to Arlene, and she'll put little marking stickers on them. And then I'm gonna ask you just to give me a real brief description. A1 is a site plan. A2 is a whatever. A3 is an example of what the deck would look like or the construction of it, and then pictures. And then we'll move forward. No. Just give those to Arlene. Good enough.
Make them separate.
Three, 1, 2, 3, and the pictures are each within the order that you have in there. 4, 5, 6. Okay. All right, Dana. So what? That we never went off of. So this is what you've been asked to be marked Exhibit A1. Just a real brief description.
That would be the site plan.
Site plan. And A2.
That's the deck plan, I believe. Sorry, let me look at these photos real quick.
Yeah, deck framing plan.
Yes.
And A3. Deck details.
Correct.
And what is A4 a picture of?
That is a picture of my neighbor's deck at 2211 Haverford Road,
And how many houses down from you is this?
directly next to me.
And what's A5 a photo of?
That would be the deck behind my house,
Directly behind your house?
directly behind.
And 6?
And then 6 would be about 5 houses down from me.
Okay.
On the opposite side.
Now that we got the formalities out of the way, please tell us a little bit about what you would like to do and why.
Sure. So I do have a little PowerPoint slide to go through, and I do have copies of the slides if needed. Not sure if is that necessary.
Are they additional to the exhibits we just entered in, or at least went through?
It's kind of just an overview to talk through my case.
Okay.
So it's just a presentation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. So basically, I have a few slides just that I want to walk through. My name is Dana Goodyear, as I stated, and I will be presenting for a request of variance for the provision 182-208 C2G. I'll kind of go through. So the current regulation as followed for 182-208 C2G for a single-family semi-detached dwelling, twin home, would be the rear yard has a 25-foot minimum. Basically, my proposal is asking that there would be a variance for that specific code so that I could construct my deck that I'm trying to get. It would be a 16 by 15-foot deck, and that would encroach the required 25-foot rear yard setback by 12.7. And I am in zone R6, so I do have a twin. So basically, with that said, kind of my rationale or reasoning for wanting the deck, specifically the dimensions that I am trying to request the variance for, is that there are several other decks within my street and the street over from me that, were granted that variance, and their setbacks are even less than what I'm requesting. So as well as that, it's also a huge safety precaution. I do want to have children eventually. I do want to stay in the house that I'm currently living in. And Haverford Road is extremely busy, so I wouldn't want any safety issues happening. So the deck would allow additional space for my children and my family's children to play on the deck and to avoid the busy street as well as the driveway, as well as adding value to the property. So that's pretty much it for me. But within the exhibits, I do have Exhibit A showing the plan that is currently being proposed. Exhibit B showing the deck framing plan.
You need to refer to them as the exhibit, how they were marked. So if you want to, are they different from these or? Okay, so just call them A1, A2, A3. Just don't forget to give me those back, please.
I won't. So A1 is the proposal that I currently have. It's showing that it would be 15 feet out from that rear yard, encroaching upon that 25-foot threshold that is currently in place under the zone. So that's kind of what I currently have in place. I do have my contractor with me as well, so he can definitely assist with some of the more technical details. And then, so the deck framing plan is also provided in A2. And then A3 is supporting details as how the deck would be built, and more specifics. For A4, as I mentioned, that is my neighbor to the left of me. Her deck would be the same exact threshold as what I'm proposing for the setback.
Okay. And if you're done with those, I'll take them back. You know. So, are any of these photos of the rear of your house?
No,
And do you have a garage?
I do.
And will you continue to use your garage?
Yes.
So you're not going to lose any parking?
No.
Okay. Jessica?
You asked my first question. Can you confirm that you're not going to store anything below the deck besides a parked car?
Correct. Only my car.
And what finish, or what will the handrail look like, the railing?
It's going to be a white railing.
Okay. And then what deck material are you going to use? Trex. And will you be putting any new utilities out on the deck, like electric or plumbing? No. Okay, I have no further questions.
Ed?
Just to clarify, how many cars do you currently park behind your,
Just one.
there's not two spaces available?
No, just one space.
No other questions?
Jesse?
In some of your exhibit photos, they look like some of your neighbors have taller railings. Are you just planning a regular height railing?
Correct.
So no walls?
No.
And you, the railing will it be as similar to Exhibit A4, which is your neighbor to the left?
Correct, same.
It'll look just like this?
Yep.
No other questions.
You finished, Jess? Yeah. You said your contractor's here?
Yes. Chris.
You want to come up? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name for the
Christopher
record?
Stillwell.
How do you spell your last name, Chris?
Stillwell.
Why don't you just give us a little bit of some detail on what it is you're actually developing back there?
So we're going to build a standard deck, 16 foot wide by 15 foot deep. We're going to use 6x6 post, 2x12 headers, 2x10 joist, Trex decking with a 4 foot high vinyl railing that goes around 3 sides of the deck.
It'll be sufficient for a car to get underneath?
Yes. Yeah, the bottom of the deck will be, I think, right around 7 foot.
Jesse?
No question.
Ed?
No questions.
Jessica?
No questions.
Neither do I.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Dana?
Just thank you all for your time and consideration.
With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify, anyone present that received regular mail, any other residents of Haverford Township. We'll close the record on this case and the decision will be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on September 7th. Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you.
Kelly's gonna be my adopted daughter, I decided. All right, David, you want to set up whatever you have, and Jeff, we'll go off the record just for 2 minutes. All right. This is Z23-16, Charles Birch, equitable owner of 622 College Avenue, Haverford, PA, DC folio number 2204-00-12301, who seeks a special exception under Code Section 182-720C2D to construct an access drive within areas of very steep slopes greater than 25%, and Section 182-720C5A and C to construct stormwater management facility and access driveway for a single-family detached dwelling within areas of steep slopes of 15 to 25%, and any other relief required, including variances from the provisions of 182-720 to construct the proposed improvement. Property is zoned R1 and located in the 5th Ward. Go ahead, Jane.
Good evening, Jamie John here on behalf of Charles Birch, and as you've just mentioned, he is the equitable owner of the property 622 College Avenue in Haverford, pursuant to an agreement of sale. Also here tonight is the attorney for the record owner, and if I may, could he just enter his appearance onto the record, and then I'll proceed with our witnesses.
Peter Mardinley, attorney ID 25354, here for the legal owner, Barry J. Belmont, trustee of the Barry J. Belmont Revocable Trust, dated March 25, 2008. And I just wanted to make the appearance of record and let Jamie do her case.
Okay, thank you.
We are going to be withdrawing any request for a variance. That was just an abundance of caution, and we do not need a variance. This is a straightforward special exception request for disturbance to areas of very steep slopes for improvements related to the construction of a new single-family dwelling on this property. I have a total of 8 exhibits. I will go through them very quickly, and then I'll call up my witnesses. Exhibit A1 is the agreement of sale and addendum for 622 College Avenue, basically showing standing for our applicants to file the application. Exhibit A2 is a deed for 622 College Avenue. Exhibit A3 is an aerial of the property as well as the adjoining properties. Exhibit A4 is a site plan of the site and the proposed conditions. Exhibit A5 is an enlargement of the site plan with coloring to show the areas of disturbance. Exhibit A6 is the Township Engineer Review Letter dated April 20, 2023. Exhibit A7 is the deed for 620 College Avenue, the adjacent lot, and the reason that is included is that there is a driveway easement that goes on 620, and that is how we are gaining access onto our lot. Exhibit A5 is the CV for Dennis O'Neill, our civil engineer.
Thank you for the pre-marked, well-organized exhibits, Jamie.
You're welcome. And before I call my first witness, I just want to say again, this is a R1 zoned lot. It is currently vacant except for a historic spring house to the rear of the property. The record owner has received grading permit approval as well as Shade Tree Commission approval for the proposed home. And the grading permit approval is contingent upon us getting the special exception approval for disturbance to the steep slopes. I think during the grading permit approval process, as stated in the township engineer's review letter, the degree of relief that's required has been reduced. Initially, the proposed home did require a variance, but the plan has been revised in order to minimize the disturbance, and therefore we're currently seeking the special exception. My first witness is Charles Birch.
Hello. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear for.
Charles Birch.
And can you please state your address?
I'm at 505 Oakley Road in Haverford.
And what is your interest in the property?
To build a house there for downsizing at some point later.
Your interest in the property, you're an equitable owner.
Oh, sorry, I'm an equitable
That's
owner.
okay.
I thought you were going to ask me what I wanted to do there.
That's okay.
Right.
And as you had indicated, you're looking to build a new home for your family on this property, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and there is a site plan showing proposed conditions, and I don't know if, okay, there we go.
Okay.
And will the footprint of the new home that you're proposing be substantially as shown on the site plan marked as Exhibit A4?
Yes.
Okay, that's all of my questions.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Jesse? Jessica? Ed? Sorry.
No questions.
Okay. Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, and our next witness is Dennis O'Neill, our civil engineer.
How you doing, Dennis?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Council, we're very familiar with Mr. O'Neill's qualifications, but if you could just quickly qualify him, that would be perfect.
Okay, great. If you can, he should be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your full name and the capacity in which you appear for the board.
It's Dennis O'Neill, O-N-E-I-L-L, professional engineer, and I'm engineer for Mr. Birch to design the site plan.
And Dennis, you have provided testimony in front of this board on numerous occasions, is that correct?
I have, yes.
And your CV has been marked as Exhibit A8, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you have a lot of experience designing this types of projects, and you have been accepted as an expert in civil engineering in the past, correct?
Correct.
Is that sufficient? Great.
All right, unless there's an objection from one of the board members, we'll accept Dennis as an expert in civil engineering.
Can you please state for the board what your office has been engaged to do?
Sure. We've been engaged first by Mr. Belmont and then subsequently by the Birches to prepare a grading plan for a new single-family residence on this vacant lot.
And Exhibit A4 shows the site plan, which shows the proposed dwelling, and that has received grading permit approval. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And can you just briefly describe for the board the relevant features of that plan?
Sure. This site consists of approximately 1.4 acres of land located on the northerly side of College Avenue. It was created as part of a subdivision in 1984. A final plan of subdivision for Graham Schaefer. As was stated, it's vacant land. It does have a historic spring house on it. It's bounded on the south by College Avenue, which is a state highway, to the west and north by single-family residential lands, to the east by the SEPTA high-speed Norristown light rail. I note that the Cobb's Creek bisects the easterly portion of the lot from north to south, and there's an associated floodplain and floodway, which comprises approximately 44,000 square feet, or just a little over an acre. 70% of the site is within the studied floodway and floodplain. This leaves approximately 19,500 square feet available for single-family development. There are two areas of steep slope. The first area bisects the lot from north to south, adjacent to the floodplain. It creates the elevation change where the floodplain stops. And it is comprised of about 5 to 6 2-foot contours over approximately 40 feet. And there's a large area of very steep slope embedded inside the steep slope. There's a second narrow band, mostly very steep slope, at the front of the lot, and I'm calling the front of the lot the easterly side of the lot. It is one contour, 2-foot contour. It's about 8 to 10 feet wide, and it stops about 2/3 of the way across the property with a small area of steep slope. Site generally slopes west to east towards the Cobbs Creek, as would be expected. The site contains a number of easements that also confine the buildable area. There is a lateral easement for lateral sewer service to the lot to our north. There is a storm sewer easement, which is kind of L-shaped, which bisects the southwesterly corner of the site. There is a water easement in the floodplain area, which carries a water main around the bridge. There is also a septic easement to the far easterly side of the property and a sanitary sewer main easement, which follows along the Cobbs Creek. As was noted, the site is provided access by an easement utilizing an existing driveway for 620 College Avenue and then turning easterly into the property. There's very short sight distance on College Avenue due to the vertical curve of the bridge crossing the railroad track into Cobbs. And for that reason, we investigated other driveway options that would allow us to avoid the steep slope disturbances, but because of the sight distance and the fact that it is a state highway, it was determined that an HOP or highway occupancy permit would not be available along the frontage of College Avenue. The plan proposes the construction of a single-family dwelling, which is permitted in the R1 district, a driveway, and required stormwater management facilities to the rear of the house. Stormwater management facility is located between the proposed house and does encroach into the steep slope areas slightly, and that encroachment includes very small portions of the bed itself, and the overflow discharge pipe and the associated grading to allow it to drain to the bed. There is a small bit of disturbance in that same area where a sanitary sewer lateral will cross that disturbance in order to access the main on College Avenue. In order to construct a driveway, we're disturbing about 216 square feet of steep slope, which is that entire area adjacent to the very steep slope, and we're disturbing about 3 square feet of the very steep slope, which is the 25%. So that is about 14.5% of the steep slope and about 0.2% of the very steep slope. As was noted, we've been through several footprint design changes on the house, and we've determined that we should front load the garage rather than side load it, and that eliminated that entire area of very steep slope to the front of the house from being disturbed, which would have required a variance. That's the existing and proposed uses on the site. The site is serviced by public water and sewer, as was noted. And again, we've limited those areas of disturbance just for those specific purposes, and it is permitted by special exception. And the grading and erosion control plan and stormwater management design have been reviewed and approved by the township engineer, subject to receiving the necessary special exception to permit the disturbance of the steep and very steep slope.
Okay, well, thank you for that very thorough description of the existing and proposed conditions. And I think that you have just testified to the fact that the siting of the proposed improvements, in particular the driveway, the home, and the stormwater management facilities, that was all driven by location of the driveway easement, natural features, and also minimizing impacts on those natural features as well as existing utility easements. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. I am now going to just go through the code requirements for a special exception and have Dennis answer those in his professional opinion. Is the property suitable for the proposed use?
Yes, it is.
Will the special exception, if granted, injure or detract from the use of neighboring property or from the character of the neighborhood?
No, it will not.
Will the use of the adjacent property be adequately safeguarded?
Yes, the minimal disturbance of the slopes proposed will have no greater impact than the construction of any other single-family house that would be constructed.
Will the special exception, if granted, serve the best interests of the township, the convenience of the community, and the public welfare?
I believe it does. In my opinion, it allows for a reasonable use of the lot by which it's zoned.
Will the special exception, if granted, have any adverse impact on public health, safety, or welfare?
It will not.
And is the circumstance for which the special exception is sought created by the owner or due to general conditions in the zoning district?
It's not created by the owner or the general conditions in the zoning district, but it is created by the uniqueness of the lot, the constraining factors, and the natural resources of steep slope that are probably caused by years of alluvial flooding from the creek that have created these steep slopes.
And that's all of my questions for Dennis.
Ed?
Yeah, I'm looking at your exhibit of your plot plan, and I don't know what number that is, but the question is, I'm having a really hard time of seeing exactly where the steep slope sections are. I mean, very steep has a color code, so it's easy. Could you please explain where the very
So
steep...
A5, our exhibit A5 is color coded.
Oh, where's A5?
Oh. It's on the screen, but I will give you another copy.
So in A5, I'm going to call them orange or brown areas are the steep slopes. The reddish areas are the very steep slope. And then there's a darker brown area behind the house and under the driveway where there are the steep slopes which are disturbed. And then there's, very difficult to see, a small triangle of deep red, which is the 3 square feet of very steep slope, which is being disturbed, which is adjacent to the wall. There's a short 2-foot-high wall around the driveway and a sidewalk, which allows us to make the grade change without disturbing the additional steep slopes. But the wall clips about 3 square feet of that very steep slope.
Gotcha. So the question I would have then is the slopes that you are going to be disturbing, they will not be considered steep slopes or very steep slopes once you've completed the project?
That is correct.
So you're eliminating steep slopes?
Correct.
And there will be an erosion problem from that point. I'm looking at, the only other thing that I have a comment on is your stormwater management red basin, you refer to it as.
Yes.
And it discharges. Is there any way you could not discharge to the steep slope?
The discharge is an overflow. The basin is designed to capture and infiltrate all storms up to the 100-year storm event. But the township engineer has asked for a overflow in the event.
So at least the 10-year storm is going to be completely infiltrated?
The 100-year storm is completely infiltrated, stored and infiltrated.
No other.
Jessica?
I have no questions.
Jesse?
Real quick, so it was 216 square feet of steep slope and only 3 square feet of very steep slope?
No, there's total 1,016, I believe.
No, of the disturbed, of what you're disturbing.
Yeah, total steep slope on the site is 6,991 square feet, and we're disturbing 1,016 square feet. The 216 square feet is the driveway.
Oh, the driveway, okay.
The rest of it is for the storm sewer system. And then the 3 square feet of very steep slope are associated with the driveway. And there's a total of 1,232 square feet of very steep slope.
And as a percentage of the whole site, the 1.4 acres, is Is that around 1%, 2%?
Yeah, yeah, about 1%.
Okay. No other questions?
Okay. All right, I have no questions.
I have
Anybody
nothing
else
further.
want to
No,
call
that's
in?
it. That's it. I do believe there are a couple neighbors here, but I don't know if they have.
With that, I'll ask, is there anyone that received certified mail that wishes to testify? Anyone that received regular mail? Please come forward. Let's go first. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Craig Pressman, 613 College Avenue, across the street.
And what would you like to tell us, Craig?
You know, we've talked to, biggest questions we have is we want to make sure this doesn't turn into like student housing. And we want to make sure that they made some representations to us right before that the trees, if you go back to their example, that we're not going to be disturbed, they're going to stay there, are protected during construction.
Well, let me just stop you right there, Craig. Jamie, would your client agree if this application was approved that this property never be used for student housing? We're not going to want it rented out to a bunch of students. I mean, there's been so many problems with that.
And
It's right across the street from
I
College.
know, there's no intent, but you know, it's like we promise these things on the record, and then 10 years from now, everybody can have student housing except for us. That's always the concern, but we are not proposing that. And
Everyone agree.
They don't have to agree to a condition that we can impose.
I'm sorry.
Impose. But I ask because it
Thank
just
you.
makes it cleaner. But I understand what you're saying, but I understand what your point is.
Okay.
So go ahead.
They made some references that they would protect the trees right across the street, right in front of the house and the bushes. And we'd like those to be protected during construction, and if they're disturbed, to have some green giants or whatever planted there to just shield it.
Craig.
Thank you.
Any questions for Jessica? Ed?
No questions.
Jesse?
No question.
Okay. Anyone else? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand.
Hi,
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I
so help
do.
you God?
My name is Stuart Gordon, 619 College Avenue. My name is Stuart Gordon, Gordon, 619 College Avenue. So we come out of the driveway. The first thing we'll see is this new house. And welcome to the neighborhood. Thank you. So we just want to make sure that the student housing is important to us. It's been there before. It is an issue for us. So we do have some assurance from you, I hope, in that regard. Secondly, the landscaping is important to us. The last thing I want to see is a new house right opposite the street. We're used to seeing a very bucolic landscape. For the past 35 years I've lived there. Barry took great care of the property, and the new owner does as well. But we want to make sure that the landscaping is kept the way it is as much as possible. If something is harmed, which can happen, we understand, during the process of building the drainage and the new driveway, let's make sure that the bushes are replaced, maybe some green arborvitaes, those green giants. That would be wonderful to have there. I don't know if you can provide that for us in a variance or this proposal, but that is the intent of our questions. Okay?
Yes.
That's it.
Any other questions? Jessica, Ed, Jesse?
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other residents from Haverford Township? Okay. Jamie, anything you'd like to add? So, Jamie, I just want to explore just a little more the student housing. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the issues and the problems that have occurred. You know, like college students renting houses in
No, I understand.
neighborhoods and then having wild parties, couches on top of porches into all hours of the night. I mean, this is a residential neighborhood. And while I understand everything Dennis said, not detrimental to the neighborhood, looking through the checklist. If one of your questions was, would student housing alter any of your questions? I suspect Dennis might say, I don't know, because he would never say, yeah, that would change my opinion, because you're here for a stated reason. But, I mean, that's a real issue. Is there a condition with respect to the student housing that you think your client could agree to?
This is a brand new issue we're dealing with. 1 minute.
Absolutely. That's all we're talking about, Steve Loeb. We're not talking about housing. You're right, Ed.
Okay.
I have like PTSD from one case. All those.
Yeah, they'd have to come back here anyhow first. Yeah, we had that in our neighborhood too. We had to fight it with George. Yeah.
We'll go off the record.
I just don't have any authority. I don't have any authority on behalf of the legal owner to impose a condition or accept a condition as a part of the special exception. And we're not even 100% sure, as we stand in front of you, exactly what you mean by student housing. I think, but we haven't read up on this, that there's some type of a definition in the code in Haverford that specifically defines what student housing is. The last thing that any of us here in this room want is some type of misconstrual of the issues here, but, and I don't think anybody's proposing student housing, but if you're saying.
That's why I didn't think it would be an issue to say, we don't have a problem with that. I mean,
Well,
Charles is the one that's going to be.
well, Charles is going to be the one who's living at the house if he buys the property. I don't know, but I'm standing here in front of you representing the owner of the house and who's got every right to the special exception, and I'm got no.
Right to request the special.
Yes, and has satisfied all the terms of the evidence of doing this. We've been doing this for a long time. So I'm just not, without reaching him, I don't have authority to waive that. And I don't want to get into trying to draft something that says this is what student housing is, because we don't have that in front of us. So.
It does say that the property won't be rented. It's not going to be rented. Owner occupied.
I'm not, single-family houses are rented. That's, with due respect, there have been problems in the past, we know this, with student housing. I think as defined in your code, but doesn't your code have in it something that you can have only so many unrelated people in a single-family house? So.
It says, many of them practice.
Well.
When people come to us and construct a new home, I never.
And we didn't either, and that's why, we're saying we don't even really have the definition in front of us in terms of what qualifies as a student housing. I don't know off the top of my head whether there are any other regulations that we would need to meet anyway.
Or close the record and just. We were going to
Yeah.
Is it helpful for everyone? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I know we're at the deadline. To know that student housing is only permitted by special exception, so to allow for student housing at that property, they would need to return back to this board to be granted a special exception for the student housing. If they're students, it doesn't matter.
Right. So if the issue then is not wanting student housing here, and based on what Kelly has just expressed, I think we can live with the condition that says you can't have student housing here unless you get further approval from the zoning hearing board. And at that time, since it is a special exception, you guys can weigh all the impacts of adverse impact on public health, safety, and welfare.
Yes.
Based upon that specific definition, I'm also comfortable on behalf of Mr. Belmont as trustee, and yeah.
Pat will close the record on this. You prepared to vote on this? Ed, are you prepared to vote?
Yes, I am.
Jesse, are you prepared to vote?
Yes.
All right. My mic, yeah, sorry, Jeff. So I would move to approve the application with the following conditions. That it be completed within, with strict conformity to the notes of testimony and completed within 1 year of this approval. If anybody can think of any other conditions, feel free to add to them and I'll amend the motion. So Jess, do you have any other conditions you would like to impose?
I'm sorry, I think the code itself says that a special exception doesn't expire, or it expires within a year of getting, what was the language, Dennis? We had looked at it. We just don't know if the home is going to be completed within a year.
All you have to do is come back and say we need more time. We've had issues with construction projects that linger and linger and linger. And I mean, we've never turned down a request for an extension of time.
Okay.
I would, as long as you put that in your findings and your exceptions, that's fine. But the way you were phrasing it, it almost sounded like you'd have to come back and do another full special exception.
We don't want to hear that again.
That would just be for an extension.
Okay.
So are there any additions to that water runoff control, anything? No? So with those two conditions, notes of testimony completed within a year, I would move that we approve the application.
Why don't we tack on completed within a year with leave to seek an extension?
They always have leave to seek an extension, but I'll add that on.
Just trying to clarify.
Okay. With that, how do you vote? Jessica?
I agree.
Ed?
I concur.
Jesse?
I agree.
So that application's approved 4-0. I'm sorry you had to wait so long, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work. Let me just appreciate your service to the township.
Thank you.
Oh, do we have to close the meeting?
Do we have? All right. And administrative matters. With that, we are adjourned.